And we're back to our main topics of the day, the turmoil over the Patriot batteries and the deepening rift between the US and its NATO allies over the war in Iran. And to talk about it and more, we're joined by Daniel Fried, former US ambassador to Poland. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador.
Good evening.
So the Polish government says the Patriot station in Poland are not going anywhere, but will the US take them from other parts of Europe, thus weakening NATO's defenses in the region?
Well, I hope not. Poland's reluctance to give up one of its Patriot batteries is completely understandable. Poland is on the eastern flank of NATO. It faces the real possibility of Russian aggression. So Poland is acting in its own reasonable interest by holding on to the Patriot batteries. Moreover, President Trump has called for European allies to do more for their own defense. He's right. Poland is doing exactly that. Poland's military buildup has been called a model by senior American officials. So we should not respond to Poland's actions by trying to pull some of its anti-aircraft, heavy anti-aircraft equipment that it needs to deal with the real threat from Russia. It's unfortunate, and I have full sympathy for the position of the Polish government.
Ukraine is also trying to do its best to protect itself from Russian attacks. Will Kyiv receive all the weapons purchased through the Pearl program and in accordance with the timetable?
Well, I hope so. But let's also remember that Ukraine has become a security provider in the Gulf. I find it odd, to say the least, that the U.S. administration is complaining about European countries not doing enough in the Gulf, while Ukraine, which is supporting security in the Gulf, signing agreements with the Saudis and others, is not given any public credit by the Trump administration at all. So this is a second case of the U.S. not acknowledging that a country is doing what the U.S. says it wants European countries to do. We say we want European countries to help out in the Gulf. Ukraine is. We don't acknowledge it. We say we want European countries to do more to defend NATO's eastern flank. Poland is. And this unfortunate request about the Patriot battery doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Happily, the U.S.-Polish relationship is in good shape. Up and down the line, the ties are strong. President Nawrocki had what I think is an important message for the American right-wing movement when he went to the CPAC conference and spoke of the need to resist Russian aggression and the need for a strong NATO. So Poland is doing its part, and the Trump administration ought to take yes for an answer.
And yet we have this whole armed deliveries turmoil. Now, do you expect Europe to buy more or less US-made arms in the coming years?
Well, this is another problem of U.S. policy. We want the Europeans to buy American equipment. In fact, the U.S. has complained about the European Union system of loans because it will, we fear, incentivize purchases of European-made equipment. Well, if we're going to make that case, then we have to be able to sell the equipment to the Europeans and not refuse to sell it. If we are not prompt in our timetable, if we push back the timetable, we can hardly blame the Europeans for looking for alternatives. So the U.S. needs to look in the mirror and organize its priorities. The Trump administration has a number of perfectly valid arguments, but it needs to stop getting in its own way, in my opinion.
Mr. Ambassador, the US president has once again criticized his NATO allies and said, quote, "The U.S.A. won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us." Is Donald Trump trying to dismantle NATO?
I hope not, and I find that accusation strange indeed. Poland was with the United States the very first day of the Iraq War. Poland had forces in Afghanistan. The British were with us on the first day. Look, the European allies stood up for the United States after 9/11 when we were attacked. President Trump cannot simply ignore that history. Yes, it's true that Europe has not been with us in combat operations against Iran, but we spent precious little effort, none as far as I can tell, trying to assemble a coalition before we went in. Secondly, the Europeans, not Poland, but a number of European countries have offered something to secure the Straits of Hormuz. They have made a general offer. Well, the United States should take them up on that, should explore what that means. In my business, as a former diplomat, when you get a general offer, make something of it rather than dismiss it or ignore it.
And lastly, Mr. Ambassador, Donald Trump has been floating this idea of withdrawing the U.S. troops from Germany. Do you see it happening?
Well, again, I hope not. Now, I think the U.S. troops in Poland are relatively secure. I don't think he'll withdraw them, for one thing. Poland is popular in the United States across the political spectrum. Poland is popular among Democrats. It is popular within Trump world. And I'm glad that President Nawrocki has maintained good ties to the MAGA movement. I'd rather have him speaking on behalf of NATO and against Russian aggression than, say, the message coming from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. But your concern is a reasonable one. The constant bashing of the Europeans doesn't serve American interests. We need to cultivate our allies to get them to do more, not just push them.
Thank you very much. Daniel Fried, former U.S. ambassador to Poland, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews and news here on TVP World.